Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. My name is JP Derbragosian. This is The Gailey Show. We are your answer to the question, what is a queer thing I can read, watch, or go to this week? And today we have a very special guest with us, Edward Stout. His new book has just come out, and we are very looking forward to speaking with him all about it. Brett, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, JD.
Yes, and let's start with some background information. So as I see it here, you are a neighbor of ours from Minnesota. You are from Cedar Rapids, Iowa?
I am from Iowa, and I have two aunts who live in Minnesota who will be able to tune into this and are very much looking forward to it. So.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. But then I also see here that you were the executive director of the Honolulu Gay and Lesbian Cultural Foundation?
I was. In 2003, I took over as executive director both of the Honolulu Gay and Lesbian Cultural Foundation and the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, now known as the Rainbow Film Festival.
Wow. So that was I'm assuming that was in Hawaii.
That was in Hawaii, yeah, where most of the books are set. And I've done, this and that out here in Hawaii. I've worked for, if you guys remember what gay.com was, I was the brand marketing manager of gay.com, the brand and marketing manager of Here TV. So I was professionally gay for quite a while.
Gay for pay.
That's right.
which is what I do on a daily basis. So tell us about your book series and the new book, a gay Marine series. Let's start there, and then we can get into the new book.
Yeah, when I first embarked on writing these books, eventually there will be 5 of them, but the landscape of gay literature that was really available to me, which is not to say everything that exists, consisted of a lot of porn, and there was a lot of camp, and there was a lot of really wonderful characters who had to die some horrible death in the end, and there were a lot of coming of age stories that were largely around kind of hating yourself. But you and I both live in a different kind of reality where things really started to shift. There's this moment right at the turn of the millennium when people started to come out younger, and they didn't grow up with this experience of self-hatred. So where was the literature that was kind of that moment? And the book world took a little bit, in my opinion, to kind of catch up to that. So I wanted to write a story about a dynamic character that lived. So the question became, all right, so what is the thing that I really have to say? And since the moment I enlisted in the U.S. Marines, people had been asking me, what was it like to be a Marine? What was it like to be gay in the Marines? What was it like to have been in the Marines? What was it like to hook up with guys in the barracks? Things like that. But it was this constant drumbeat of questions about that. And I'm like, all right, let's talk about this. But you can't answer that in 25 words or less. So what are you going to do? And so, out comes book number 1, which I approached it by saying, let's not talk about what it was like to be in the military. Let's talk about what it was like to lose being in the military. And so I set the books right as this character that I've created, Brad Spicer, has gotten out in the summer of 2001. And he comes to this realization that if he's not a Marine, he doesn't know what he is anymore. And I think some people experience that when they change a job that's been a career. Some people experience it after school when you've defined yourself as something for so long. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And so he kind of does this thing that I think a lot of us do, which is meet somebody brand new that's in the gay sphere, and then we just consume them 24 hours a day. We see them every day, we text them every day. And that's something that I think is uniquely part of the gay experience. Straight people that I've known through my life, I don't speak for all straight people, but I will. They'll meet somebody over coffee and then message them 2 months later and maybe see them at coffee again. Gay people tend not to do that. Like, we'll meet at the gym. It's like, hey, what are you doing after the gym? Hey, what are you doing after we got this protein shake? Hey, what are you doing later? Hey, want to go see a movie? Hey, you want to go out tonight? And like this series of things will happen. So in my pursuit of trying to tell a uniquely gay story where it wouldn't make sense if the characters weren't gay characters, I decided to have Brad interact with these people and become obsessed with their worlds in trying to replace his own. And so, book 2, ta-da! He ends up in the company of this local gossip columnist who has the whole world of fancy parties and celebrities and opera stars and ballet singers, and like Brad is easily impressed. And he very much wants to go to the party, please. And the thing that I found that drew me into the thesis that I wrote for the story, the treatment that I wrote for the story was Brad, by default, as this stereotypical, in some ways, attractive, white, tall, gay guy who barely speaks because he's just paralyzed with worrying about what people will think about anything that he has to say. People then just project onto him masculinity that he doesn't really have. He just doesn't talk because he's afraid of speaking. And by doing kind of nothing except for looking how he looks, he's totally embraced by this gay world of these bars and things that he goes to, especially because he was a Marine. And then you have this character, Danny, this gossip columnist, who is performatively effeminate. It's this character that he draws that the society world is obsessed with, and they all think he's so much fun and the life of the party, and the gay world wants nothing to do with him. And so Brad's cachet that he has in one world is useless in Danny's world, and vice versa, and they're both kind of staring at each other across this divide. That was a really long answer, but
Oh, no, it's great. And you were holding up the book covers for folks who are watching on YouTube. You got to see those, but they're very also great book covers as well.
Thank you.
So congratulations on that. It's always important when there's a good book cover.
My publisher and I's illustrator has done this phenomenal job. God, the series book covers took the better part of 8 months to kind of slowly come up with, and we settled down on the idea of the empty Marine uniform being filled in by its environment to kind of represent that Brad kind of feels like he is missing and is just kind of molding to what he is. And like, what a brilliant idea. And to have all of her custom illustrations. And soon enough, for the end of the year, the third one as well.
So 2001... If it's in 2001, so do you have Don't Ask, Don't Tell as a theme within the series or not?
Very much. I was part of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal movement. I was pretty involved in that. You're familiar with it, I presume. So in 2006, when they wanted to have this conversation, they being some closeted military officers wanted to reignite the conversation about repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They went out looking for somebody to write a letter that they would distribute to all of Congress, and I'm the one that wrote the letter. Then as HRC started to get involved with how they would approach that, I got kind of just included by default because I had written the letter. But then as things took off, there was a speech that I gave in the White House, and some shenanigans went down, and the things kind of went through. I don't want to take credit for things that were part of a lot of people being involved, but that needed to be part of what this story was going to be. And so talking about it kind of afterwards, Brad's still kind of haunted by this ghost of being afraid every time he walks out of the door of the club. Like, who am I next to? And especially in book 2, because Danny is so overtly effeminate, Brad is constantly embarrassed by that femininity and by that overt gayness. And he doesn't have to be anymore. And he really starts to, in his friendship with him, challenge that within himself, there was this cultural gay obsession with hypermasculinity and being seen as masculinity that I think was at the root of why there was so much of a fantasy around military men at that time. And I wanted to set it in 2001 because I think that in September 11th of 2001, the universe that we live in dramatically changed. And that is where this book series will end. I think it's like Titanic. It's not giving it away to know where this goes, but it was a time before we wore our political allegiances on our sleeves. And, back then, like, people didn't even know who the president was. It was nuts. I served in the military. I can't tell you how many guys I knew literally didn't know who the president was. It was a common thing. And it's kind of hard at this point for us to look back at that. So I wanted to kind of pinpoint that and like nail that moment that we had before this massive event that rocked all of us. And just kind of like let that crystallize within the same context that at this point in 2001, we're 5 years out from the kind of like mainstreaming of post second generation protease inhibitors. So like people were starting to survive from HIV, and now today we're doing this 20-year nostalgic look back, and where that look back doesn't involve the funerals and it doesn't involve all of that. So like I really wanted to kind of give the books that kind of moment of levity that we were experiencing in the community in that kind of place.
And now the newest book, Point and Shoot. Where are we at now in the story?
So we start off in July and we will end in September. So by the time that we get to Point and Shoot, we're in August, where a minor character from book 2, who is a director of adult entertainment centering around young amateur straight Marines, invites Brad to help manage 2 of these Marines on a video shoot on the Big Island. And through it, there are salacious moments in it, but as my publisher said, it's the least salacious graphic encounters that he's ever read. It's really the fact that everything else in its way is kind of titillating of the Marines just hanging out, that when they actually get to the point where they're stripped down, it's not sexy at all. It's just mechanical and weird, and you suddenly remember this is the difference between being gay and being straight, that these guys on camera aren't gay. And the way that they come in and out of this camaraderie and the places where it kind of overlaps is what I play with.
Well, this sounds very exciting. How do folks follow you on social media?
So I'm on Instagram easily at Brett E. Stout. I'm on Patreon as Brett Edward Stout. And there's Facebook for, us old folk.
Fantastic, Brett. I have to wrap us up. I apologize for time. This has been very exciting. Come back every time. You are a friend of the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's our show for today. Our podcasts are executive produced by Jim Pounds, production support provided by Brett Johnson, marketing and advertising support provided by Chad Larson, Laura Headland, and Jennifer Ogren. Follow us on Instagram. We are at @_Gailey Show. You can watch us anytime on our YouTube channel, stream our shows on your favorite podcast app, and visit us at thisqueerbook.com or am950radio.com. And until next Saturday, see you queers and allies in the bookstores.